I had a bad day. And I feel like this is, I guess, the perfect time to start one of my new series that kind of completes the whole God, goals, and grad school mantra or theme that I'm going to be having on my channel. This one's talking about God. Can we talk about faith today? I mean, I'm having a hard time with it, not because of like I don't believe in God or anything like that. I just I don't appreciate what it's requiring of me, and I frankly don't want to do it. And maybe this is something that you can relate to. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to see. But let's dive in. A couple of weeks ago, a very, very wise person kind of directed me to Hebrews 11 to really talk about faith. And there's a really interesting backstory on this because I woke up that morning and my eyes were just burning, burning. And I didn't know it was wrong. And I found just a specialist and ended up, going to see a cornea specialist that day within hours. And turned out my corneas were scratched and it was just a whole big ordeal. Don't fly with contacts. It's a tangent, I know, but there's a point, right? So the very, very wise person took me to Hebrews 11, and I'm just going to use my phone to get to the NIV version. When he asked me to read it, I can only really see out of one eye because the other one just really, really hurt to open. But he had me read Hebrews 11:1. And it says in the NIV version, "Now faith is the confidence in what we hope for, an assurance about what we do not see." Now, you get you get the pun, right? That's a verse I've heard over and over and over again. I think it just had some special meaning because I literally could not see. Now, frankly, I'm quite comfortable with the first half of the verse. It's been in the Church of Christ rotation for 1,000 years. But today, when I read this verse again, I kind of felt a little twinge when I got to the second part of the verse. I'll read it again. Now, part 1, faith is confidence in what we hope for. Of course. Let me just hope. Let me hope. Great. An assurance about what we do not see. Do not see. Being sure of something I do not see. Now, today I was, thinking about the things that just kind of made my day crappy. And I didn't really feel like I saw an end to that. And it struck me particularly hard today because I was just I don't see this ending well. I don't see it. And now I'm hit with this verse that says that there's a sense of assurance in something I do not see. See, when I was talking to the very, very wise man, I always thought, faith is trust. Yes, you trust. You trust that things will be okay. And honestly, the first half of that verse is very much kind of supports my little thesis. And he really challenged me on that. Trust is something that you do when you see evidence. And now I'm faced with the second half of the verse today. And I'm just wait, assurance is something I don't see? Isn't that the literal definition of blind faith? That's, at least in the United States, the colloquial term of blind faith is kind of a negative one where it's just you're just going to believe something without, any proof or anything like that. And I was just that doesn't really make sense. I don't really like that. I don't like that. Like, I'm not going to just like believe in like fairies without proof. Like, I don't know, I just kind of saw this in a new light, and I struggled with it in a new way. And quite frankly, it's just probably exposing a little bit more about just how much I've kind of relied on like Sunday school faith, because like, I've grown up in the church my entire life. And I think that, even went to a Christian school. I feel like I've kind of checked a lot of boxes when it came to maintaining a relationship with God that was highly curated by my environments. Right now, what I'm trying to work on is taking ownership of it. Instead of having my environments curate my faith and the verses I know and the experiences I have with God, I'm trying to own the relationship. And it works out because now I don't have school or, my parents telling me, what I need to believe. Now it's just me. It's me. I'm here, and I'm realizing that like I've had like pretty a milky relationship with God, and now I'm trying to get a meaty one. So that's why I'm inviting you on this journey, so that hopefully we can do that together. I've always kind of associated faith with trust, and I associate trust with evidence that I can see. And today it just hit me in a different way. I mean, even when it was something that, I've had this discussion before, and I don't know, this always happens when I talk to him. The very wise person, always tells me something, and I'm just like, oh, cool. And then some time passes, and then something in my life happens, and I like really understand it. Like, I feel like the knowledge when he says it kind of like hits me, and I'm like, yeah, I see it. And then I like file it, and then like there's something that makes it click and makes my brain grab onto it. Let's read this in a different version. Now, faith is the reality of what is hoped for, the proof of what is not seen. The reality of what is hoped for, the proof of what is not seen. I feel like this version didn't really help me understand or digest it. I mean, now it's like reality and proof. It kind of just like agitated me even more in a sense, because it's just like proof of what's not seen. Like that's a paradox if I've never heard one. Proof of what is not seen. It's like, but seen is proof. How can you have proof of what's not seen? Like, reading that initially like did not resolve any of my confusion, and I think that's why God gave examples. I kept on reading, and it just goes on and starts naming all of these people who had faith. Noah, Abraham, like Moses, and it's just like, okay. So God is giving us all these examples of people who have just gone out and had faith and, did what, God was telling them to do, which is great. And as I was reading that, I saw that these people had faith and they went out and did what God asked them to do, most of them, but they didn't just like wake up one day and just say, you know what, I am going to build a boat. I don't know what a boat is. I'm just going to build it. No, God actually told them something. God actually promised them something. And because of that, they were able to have faith, and they trusted based on who they knew God was, if that makes sense. It's like God made promises for them to hold on to, and his word was actually the assurance or the proof for them to actually act on it. And that when I think about that, that's actually a little bit more helpful to me. Because like God gives us promises too, like when I kind of think about, the top of my head, I mean, God says that all things work together for good. God also says that he's not going to leave us or forsake us. And as I started to kind of think about those promises, I was just like thinking about like myself and real life. Because like I said, I'm trying to kind of break out of curated Christianity, and I'm trying to actually take ownership of it. So when I hear this, intellectually, I'm just like, oh yes, this sounds very familiar. Yes, I must have faith. But now that I'm like in real life with like marriage and adulthood and temptations and all that stuff, it's like, no, actually, like, I want my life exactly the way I want it, and I want it right now. Can we have that? Can I have that right now, please? Because that's what I want. I really don't want to wait. I don't really want to have to struggle for that. Like, no. And it's, the word's actually saying, like, yeah, everything's going to be great. God has a wonderful life in store for you. You're just going to have to, like, wait. And I think, honestly, if I were to actually pick my least favorite word in life, like some people would choose fork, or what's another weird word? Moist. Nope. I will hear moist every single day of my life. I hate the word wait. Like, even saying it kind of like raises my blood pressure. And it's just like, again, like, I feel like, I don't know, like, God kind of met me in this moment and was just like, yeah, no, because that's just not how it works. I mean, I know that a lot of times, like, I have found my way towards, like, creating shortcuts. Like, oh, I really want to save and buy a house, but you know what? I really want Rent the Runway. Or I really want to buy this new iMac or a new camera for my YouTube channel and all that stuff. And it's just like, I honestly think that that's why the writer puts in the story of Sarah in here, because Cliff Notes version, this is what happened with Sarah. It's in Genesis. I'll put the chapters in the link below. But basically, God promised Abraham that his descendants would just kind of span multitudes and there'd be a lot of heirs, except he didn't have a kid. And he was just like, I'm really old. And God's like, don't worry, you're going to have a kid. And then Sarah, his wife, was basically like, by our standards, like postmenopausal, or just like couldn't have kids. She was straight up, in her 70s. And she was just like, okay, cool, I'm gonna have a kid. But then that's kind of crazy because I'm so old. So then she like pulls a Handmaid's Tale and then gives her servant over to Abraham and is just like, hey, have a kid so that we can just have a kid. And so Hagar, the servant, does have a kid. And then eventually, like, and I'm talking about like, I did some research and they're saying like 15 years later, eventually Sarah is like 90 years old and has a kid. And it's just like, what ended up happening was just like a major sibling rivalry that like technically is still going on to this day. And I say all of that to say, it's just like, Sarah got impatient. She didn't like the word wait either, just like me. And she put together some shortcuts that ended up kind of undermining the intention of God's promise. God still fulfilled his promise, but then there was a whole bunch of drama that happened after that. And it's just like, what if? What if she did wait? What if she did completely like rest in God's promise and, let God's plan happen the way that he said? But like, can we like look at this in real life? Like, does that mean I have to wait 15 years for a solution or for things to get great? Like, I have to wait decades for my life to be the way I want it to be? Like, is that even like worth it? Like, that kind of spoke to me in that sense, because I am very quick to undermine God's plans. And honestly, I'm still just trying to like learn what God's plan is, because like I grew up in the Church of Christ. We didn't really kind of do the whole like God speaking to you thing, but then we believe in the Holy Spirit. It was very confusing. And like now I'm like really trying to understand what that means. I mean, God does speak to us through his word, and I am really kind of learning to listen. When I think about the whole idea of waiting decades, it's like, can you imagine having an itch for 10 years and not being able to scratch it? Like, I would scratch, I would poke. I would have some kind of intervention just to make me feel like I can do this. And honestly, I think when I do think about my life, I have done my own interventions. I have taken my own shortcuts thinking that, oh, okay, no, it's fine. Like, I'll make myself feel better because there's a sale and I'm going to get like the most amazing outfit and I'm going to feel great, and that's going to solve it. And it solves it for a good 20 seconds. And then there's a new sale and a new something. And it's just like this never ending pit. And it's kind of like, from actual experience, like I do know that our interventions, they don't quite hit the spot the way that God can, And it's just like, what I'm working on right now is like going beyond the conceptual understanding, like that whole, yeah, I get it, and actually getting that visceral understanding where I'm just like, no, wait. And honestly, like, that feels overwhelming. And I guess lucky for us, there's an answer to that, like, that's why we have chapter 12 of Hebrews. So let me start off in the beginning. Therefore, since we have such a large cloud of witnesses surrounding us, all of those people who have lived by faith, all of that, let us lay aside every hindrance and the sin that so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that lies before us, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the source and perfecter of our faith. For the joy that lay before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. This is like actually one of those times where it's just like, it's hard to admit, but it's just like, oh man, like this is like the perfect response, like sometimes I can't help but think that either the Bible is full of a whole bunch of coincidences or God is actually talking and actually giving me what I need in the moment that I need it. And I mean, let's break it down, right? Since we have a large cloud of witnesses surrounding us, all right, you want proof? I've given you proof. I've given you all of these people throughout the Bible. And quite frankly, I know that we can actually think about our own lives and think about how God has brought a whole bunch of other people through. Like, they are included in our cloud of witnesses surrounding us. Let us lay every hindrance and the sin that so easily ensnares us. Yes, it's so easy for us to actually create interventions and shortcuts and going to that sale to make us feel better, or going to that smoothie Rocky Road ice cream and cookies and chocolate chip cookies with walnuts and sea salt to like actually, soothe us. And those are the things that just don't help. I mean, they can be sin when they are used as an idol in place of God. Again, it so easily ensnares us. Like, it's natural for us to want to solve our own problems by things that we think will make life better. But it's just really important for us to realize that, sometimes we don't know what's best. Especially if it's guided by our own flesh and not by our relationship with the Holy Spirit and God. Let us run with endurance the race that lies before us, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the source and perfecter of our faith. This is the perfect statement because it's just like, it's God saying, yeah, I know you can't do it. You can't wait 15 years for your son or 15 years for your life to be where you want to be. That's why, you're going to need to actually instill the help of Jesus. You know why Jesus is the perfecter of the faith? Because, and as the verse kind of continues and says that Jesus has endured 8 trillion times more than what you're going through right now. He knows exactly what you're feeling and has felt so much worse. So we have to rely on his power and his ability to overcome for our abilities to actually overcome. And that is, that's the answer, right? That is the goal. And I think that that's what I'm going to try to do, even though it feels scary and it feels like unappetizing, quite frankly, if I can be real, because honestly, I can think of some solutions I think are going to be pretty bomb, and it's just, there's a better way. And even though it might not feel like the best way right now, there's a better way. We have examples of people taking what they thought was the quick win in order to make things better, and it made things worse. So I guess for me, it's just going to be important to remember both of those things. The people who had faith and got to see that through, and the people who are like me and tried to make their own shortcuts in order to get a really piece of what was actually fully intentioned. So I don't want a piece. I want the whole thing. I just had to figure out how. Well, I don't have to figure out. We just went through this, right? It's going to be one thing for me to read it. It's going to be another thing for me to live it. And that's the whole point of this series. It's the whole point of why I'm here. What I've learned throughout my career as a YouTuber is that I best internalize the things that I sit down and get ready to teach through this medium. And there's no better thing for me to actually internalize and take ownership of than my faith. So I hope this was useful for you. If it was, please share it. If it wasn't, hopefully I'll get better. Because I think I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep going. And I think that, there's no way to go but up, right? This is a pretty worthy pursuit. So if you're here for it, then great. Subscribe. There will be more of it. Let me know in the comments below how you're feeling about this, if you were convicted, if you have some other ideas or any resources that has helped you grow your faith. Because if you are along your ownership journey, I want all the tips as possible, because I'm trying to get there. Share, subscribe, all the good stuff, and I'll see you next time. Okay. I'm going to do this, and I know that looks crazy, but just bear with me right now, because it's literally 12 hours since I filmed that last video, and okay, everything's not perfect right now, but one thing that was a big heavy weight on my shoulder, today I got a call, and it's just it's no longer going to be an issue. And like, okay, here's the thing. And here's something that you're going to learn about me and my faith is that, like, again, I'm going to say this often, but I grew up in the Church of Christ. We don't do like, just like traditionally, we're just not a highly emotional church. We're not very, like, we believe in the Holy Spirit, but at the same time, like, when you look at other churches and what they talk about the Holy Spirit, it's just like, woohoo, that's way too extreme. Like, I'm always skeptical about people who are just like, oh, I manifested this, BMW, and it's just like, I don't, like, prosperity doctrine, all that stuff just doesn't resonate with me. And so I tend to be quite skeptical about those kinds of testimonies, or sometimes real talk, sometimes I just think it's really fake. But just today, like, I'm starting on this journey. I'm like actively seeking God, and like, I don't want to say, like, I feel like I'm like those weight loss tea people who it's just like, I lost 40 pounds in 28 hours. Like that's what I feel like right now. But I just like want to like just let you know, like, a genuine sense of relation that, like, it's real, like that proof of things not seen. Like, when God says that he knows what the plans that he has for you, or he knows what he's doing, like, he's going to make sure you're going to be good. Like, it's real. Like, and you know what? I'm probably going to have another time when I'm just going to be like, oh, life is horrible. And like, I just don't know what to do. And like, I'm probably going to have a hard time, like relying on God 100% of the time. But I just wanted to document this, like, right now, because, like, what? This was completely unexpected. I don't know, I feel delivered in a sense, which is kind of dramatic, I know, but it's just like, I thought that I was going to be in a situation for much longer than today I found out I would be in. And it's just like, okay, like, this is not a coincidence. This is not fake. I did not manifest this ending or anything like that. Like, I am intentionally trying to walk with God, trying to figure out what that means, trying not to feel corny about it. And like, I'm just really thankful. So I just wanted to kind of add this at the end. Like, you don't have to believe me. I know my story, I know my life, but I just wanted to share that, like, I know that we're not going to always have like these instant, this kind of instant gratification or instant blessing. Like, God's not a genie, but this was a very real sign. Oof, that feels so uncomfortable to say, a sign. Like, again, Church of Christ, we do signs, like, what? But like, this is like a real sign that at least I'm on the right track. So if you're here for it, cool. If not, doesn't really concern me. But I just want to kind of like document and just provide a quick testimony, real time, for you to just experience with me. And I really invite you to kind of think about what's happening in your life. What are the small wins that kind of snowball and become huge deliverances, I guess, in your life. All right? Okay. God's actually good, like, in real life. Cool. Bye.